Well, hello again, everyone. Welcome to the Sports Corner. Welcome to Art Regner's video blog for FoxSportsDetroit.com. We're talking about Game 4 of the World Series between the Tigers and the San Francisco Giants. The Giants defeat the Tigers tonight by a score of 4-3 in 10 innings, and they win the World Championship. They are world champions, and congratulations to the San Francisco Giants. A heck of an effort by them. They won 7 straight to win the championship, and of course sweeping the Tigers, which I don't think anybody saw coming, especially the Tigers, was something that you just have to, again, although I hate this expression, and I'm really hating this expression, tip your cap to the Giants. Let's look at the Tigers season, shall we? And this was not a good World Series for the Tigers. They batted 159 as a team, which is the third lowest in World Series history. That certainly wasn't good, and they now have lost, if you go back to 2006 where they lost 3 straight to the St. Louis Cardinals, they've now lost 7 straight World Series games, which is an American League record. So, that's kind of the real bad stuff. So before we continue talking about the series, I just want to say that after a season ends, when something is over, I think you get a little bit reflective. And when I look at this Tiger season, I think that it was satisfying all the way up until the World Series. And when I mean satisfying is that they were picked to win their division, which they did do, although it was a little bit scary, and they certainly should have won more than 88 games. They beat the Oakland Athletics in an exciting Game 5 where Justin Verlander was absolutely brilliant, and they defeated the A's 3-2, and then sweeping the New York Yankees. Of course, the layoff, whether it hurt the Tigers or not, I guess you could say that it did, because they just never seemed to be the same team after the Yankee series, and certainly the Giants had something to do with that. It was a game of momentum, and San Francisco came riding a high, and they were able to maintain that high, and the Tigers, for whatever reason, they were over here against the Yankees, and then they just kind of plummeted and never got it going. But, the problem was that the bats were certainly cold, as they have been all season. I think Jim Leyland pointed it out several times during the World Series that we've played this way a lot this year. We were running hot and cold with the bats the whole season long, and eventually it certainly caught up with the Tigers in the end in the World Series. Now, I would say that this was a satisfying season, but I have to admit the way that this season ended, in the long run, it was a disappointment. Certainly you can stomach when your team loses, but when they get swept, and they really just did not seem to, except for their pitching staff, I guess, it just didn't seem they were very competitive. So I guess it was disappointing. I have covered a lot of championship teams in my career, and certainly the Red Wings have been the team that I have covered the most. I have now seen them play for the Stanley Cup 6 times. They've lost the Cup twice, and they won it 4 times. And anybody who knows me knows I go by the creed that Ken Holland, the Red Wing general manager, always says, that in the playoffs, and I'm going to say in the playoffs, and I do think that this pretty much you can use for all 4 major professional sports, you have to have a little luck, you have to have injury-free. In hockey's case, you have to have good goaltending, which I would say in baseball translates to pitching, and your best players have to be your best players. So if you look at the Tigers, except for Omar Infante getting hurt, they were relatively healthy during this postseason run. I know Avila got banged up a little bit at the end too. I thought that their pitching, for the most part, held up very well. Their starting pitchers, Phil Koch was a surprise. Of course, Jose Valverde had a meltdown, and that really threw the bullpen into all kinds of disarray, because Phil Koch suddenly had to become a closer, and then Drew Smiley, a rookie, was called in to pitch some pretty big and important innings during the playoffs, and even though he was a little bit shaky, I don't think anybody will forget Game 1 in New York where Drew Smiley was the winning pitcher. So I'm going to, I guess, say that pitching was adequate. The bullpen probably could have been better, but if Jose Valverde didn't have a meltdown, it might have been a completely different story. But I think if you look at specifically the World Series, the problem with the World Series was this. Your best players have to be your best players. The Tigers have 3 of the best players in all of baseball: Miguel Cabrera, Justin Verlander, and Prince Fielder. And I know Miggy got a 2-run homer in Game 4, and Got another RBI, I guess, in Game 1. But if you really look at it, Detroit's best players were not their best players in the World Series. And I think at that point, when you reach that level, you need leadership. And I know that there's always an unsung hero or two. But really, if the big boys aren't getting it done, that really puts your team behind the 8 ball. And, Justin Verlander did not get it done in Game 1. I think that took an emotional charge out of not only the Tiger fan base, but perhaps the Tigers themselves when he got shelled in San Francisco in Game 1. And I think they just never really recovered, and certainly the hitting didn't. I think Doug Fister, Anibal Sanchez, and even Max Scherzer, I thought, pitched very, very well. Phil Koch, it was a tough loss for him to lose this game, but overall, I really think that it came down to something that we have talked about in the previous video blogs, is the Tigers just didn't hit, and when it really counted, their best players were not their best players. It pains me to say that because I guess if I were being really honest with myself, my favorite Detroit team, and I know people think it's the Red Wings, and I love hockey, and certainly I love the Detroit Red Wings, and I've had a long association with them, and it's worked out very, very well, and I do appreciate being allowed to be part of, especially the 2002 Stanley Cup team. When I actually was traveling with the club, it was something I'll never forget. A kid from Detroit being able to do something like that is a lifelong memory, certainly. But I really do think because, and I've told this story before, my grandfather, who immigrated from Greece, was a huge Tiger fan. He lived with my family, or with our family. He was part of my family. He was my grandfather. Well, I lived, until he passed away, and he was a huge baseball fan, huge Tiger fan, and so I grew up ever since I can remember listening to the Tigers on the radio, watching Tiger baseball, first with George Kell and Larry Osterman, and it goes on and on and on. So, I'm pretty emotionally attached to this team, but then again, as I've said in earlier video blogs, I have to be kind of objective. And that's my job, and that's what I do now. So my heart's always with Detroit, especially the Tigers, but I have to call it as I see it. And really, if you really look at it, Justin Verlander, who was great in the playoffs up until the World Series start, and Miggy got a few good hits. Prince Fielder, who was tagging the ball, just really, really struggled. But in the end, without their best players being their best players, Verlander, Cabrera, and Fielder, that put an enormous amount of pressure on this team, and I thought they really, really pressed. Johnny Peralta, who tagged a couple of balls tonight in Game 4, I thought was really the unsung hero of the Tigers until the World Series, where he batted under 100. So a satisfying season to a point, but in the end a disappointing season, even though they got to the World Series. I guess the way they lost just leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth, and hopefully the Tigers will regroup. Will Jim Leyland come back? I'm not sure if he'll come back or not. I think he wants to come back, and if I were a betting man, I think once everything settles down, I think he probably will be back. There's a strong rumor that perhaps the Tigers are going to go after Josh Hamilton. Anybody thinking that they're going to shore up the shortstop position, from what I've been told, the shortstop position, free agency-wise, is kind of bleak. So unless they trade for a shortstop, expect the Tigers to take Johnny Peralta's exercise their option on his contract, which I believe is $6 million a year. I think they're going to have to find a closer. I think that'll be priority number one, and then maybe shore up the infield position, although I don't think they're that disappointed with Peralta. But in the end, San Francisco was the better team. Even though I really do hate this expression, tip my cap to the San Francisco Giants. I congratulate the Tigers on winning the American League Central and winning the American League pennant. But I know that the Tigers, just like me and all of Detroit right now, are certainly a little bit stunned and disappointed with the way this season ended. So until we meet again, and we'll be talking about Michigan and Michigan State, and Pistons start this week on Halloween, and of course the Lions. So there'll be plenty of video blogs coming your way, and we'll certainly do a little hot stove league talk here as well about the Detroit Tigers. But everyone have a safe and pleasant one. I'm Art Regner for FoxSportsDetroit.com. We'll talk to you very, very soon. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. I wanted to be coherent, so I actually thought about this one, and sometimes maybe it's better to go off the cuff. But take care, everyone. We'll see you. Bye-bye.